Well, hello everybody. It has been a manic, my monitor isn't straight, so I'm a bit like this, but apart from that, we're okay. Hello everybody, how is everybody today? First of all, can you hear us? This is the first thing that we always say, because we just want to make sure that we don't spend half an hour waffling away and nobody can hear. So you can hear me, good, and Louise. Where's Louise? There she is there.
Can you hear me?
And can you hear Louise? Give us a thumbs up if you can hear both of us. There we go. Okay, let's put my monitor straight. It has been, I'll tell you what's been going on. We should have been on a little bit earlier, and I do apologise, but it's been one of those afternoons. I can put my lights on, I can put my lights on or anything at all. Yeah, everybody. So we've got some interesting news. We were supposed to be downstairs, weren't we?
Yes.
Yes. But Jason, Jason had to go home just before lunch. His little girl's not well, little daughter's not well, so we were going to have this downstairs. 1:30, we set everything up, realised that we haven't updated the software that we've got downstairs, so being an old computer, it's taken over 10-15 minutes to download, have to uninstall the old software, and so literally 5 minutes to 4, I thought, I can't do this. So we come running back upstairs with all the cameras and everything else and set it up. So I'm amazed we've actually done it so flipping quick, to be honest. That's enough of me. How's everybody today? Absolutely sweating conkers.
You are now. I was going to say you're sweating.
I've been up and down the stairs like 8 times, carrying that camera, carrying that camera, carrying this, carrying the whiteboard. I took that downstairs, and I've lost I've lost the little thingy that fell off downstairs.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I would help, but I got a bad arm.
Oh yes. Okay. And another piece of news: Louise had her jab yesterday. Didn't
Yes,
she?
and everybody knows it. So yeah, thank you, Horatia and Romy, for asking. I'm okay. I feel okay. Got a sore arm. I was terrible yesterday. I had to spend the whole day on the sofa.
The whole day, having been waited on, hand, foot, and finger. Meals cooked for you. I'm surprised you couldn't even lift your arm yesterday, Louise.
No,
but
today, I couldn't do anything. I feel okay today. I did have a meeting this morning I didn't want to miss.
Exactly.
So I staged a miraculous recovery. What can I say? Recovery. Yes, so that was very fortunate. But yesterday I couldn't do a thing. Single thing. Nothing.
But yes, the berry meals for wheels sorted you out. Good. All right, everybody. Anything we need to say before we start? We're a little bit behind. I don't want to hang on too long before we start. Anything we need to say, Louise, before we go any further?
I don't think so.
No? Anything at all?
No.
Nothing at all?
Well, are you making me think I should make an announcement or something?
No. I just didn't want to start and you go, we haven't told this, we haven't done this, we haven't said this.
No, I don't think there's any news, is there?
No, don't think so.
No.
Okay, so here we go. We do have a bit of news, don't we? But we'll come to that a little bit later. Do we have any news?
Do we?
But then everyone knows, don't they?
What?
About
About what?
Yeah. Is Sunny on today? No, he's not. We're going to be coming to that a little. We'll explain now. So Sunny's not coming on today because we have to get the questions over to Sunny. We got some great questions in the At the Bench Facebook page. So thank you very much for the guys who did that. If you want to ask Sunny a question, go onto Facebook, At the Bench. We put a little post on there asking for questions. So please do put some questions by there that we can ask. We have been in contact with, can I say? I can't say because it's all been...
I think so, yeah.
We've been in contact with, again, we're talking about All That Glitters, BBC 2, 8 p.m. Tuesday. Catch it up on iPlayer as well. So we've also managed to get, we've been able to get Sunny, so hopefully he'll be on next week. We're just going to try and sort out some technicalities. We're going to do it via Zoom. Need to sort out some of the camera positions and that sort of thing. But we've also managed to get Naomi.
Yeah.
Got it right. Naomi, who went out last week. We managed to get her as well. So we're going to be getting her, we're going to be doing an interview with her. All the questions have been approved, pleased to say.
Yeah.
Certain questions we couldn't ask, but all the questions have been approved by the what's it called? Press?
Yes, the PR people.
By the PR people.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
So we passed all the questions by all the proper channels and they've all been approved, which is absolutely brilliant. I'm not quite sure when that is going to be yet. Do we have to...
just need to sort out a few little bits and pieces. Yeah.
Have to sort out some timing, and then we should also, so we'll have at least 2 of the contestants on our question and answers, which is really, really good. Really chuffed with that. So again, don't forget, tomorrow in the UK, 8 p.m, BBC 2, the second episode of All That Glitters. Right, shall we start?
Yeah, would you like a question?
It is Monday, the 19th of April. It's 4 p.m, it's time for our question and answer for this week. Looking very dapper again today, Andrew, I do say so. Thank you very much indeed. Louise, maybe have a next question, or a first question even. Thank you.
Yes. Elizabeth is asking, what is your favourite stone setting technique and why?
I find the easiest technique is to do the start of flush setting. Okay, so you simply drill into it, you straight sided setting burr, but you don't flush set. You can do this quite decoratively. You can have your piece of metal, okay, so you drilled your hole, you've done your 90-degree. Okay, so you've done this, you drilled your hole initially, you've done your 90-degree setting burr, your stone sits in here, nice. If your stone wobbles slightly and is a little bit loose, this is a nice, easy technique, okay? So your stone goes in place just like that there. If it wobbles, don't worry about it. So we're not going to flush set. All we're going to do, we're going to get a graver, okay? And we're going to stick a graver in by there, okay? So the graver goes in by there, okay? And it's going to push a little bit of metal over onto the stone by there, and likewise by here, okay? So here's your graver coming in, all right? And it's going to push in here, and it's going to raise a little bit of metal coming over onto the stone. So you're effectively sort of grain setting. Now the advantage of this is, if you have a graver that is that shape, that's terrible, Andrew, that is sort of that, no, that's even terrible again, like a spit stick, okay, which is like that. So you have quite a sharp, then if you put your spit stick in here and here, you can raise a little grain here, a little grain there. Looks nice. But if you're coming along and you've got a few stones, if you put the graver in here and here, you can raise a little grain here and here, then you would raise the grain there and there, and you get a little bit of, there's your stone, and you get a bit of decoration. The grain comes in, and then just get a little beading tool and just round the tip off. So if your stones are wibbly wobbly a little bit, that's the start to today, this is great because it's the grain that are holding in. Don't worry about trying to flush set and burnish the edges. Leave those edges, but it's the grains now that are just holding it in place. 2 on either side like that, nice and easy. That's my favourite. Next question, please, Louise.
Okay, Rebecca is saying, I watched your Goldbrum video prior to operating my new unit on the weekend.
Yeah.
Thanks. Any tips on pouring out the molten metal when a smaller amount's 30 to 60 grams?
As long as you have those little tongs to grasp around that lip that's on the top of the graphite crucible, that's all you really need. But what you've got to remember is, because, and this catches me out quite a bit, obviously the metal, and perhaps, I'll only melt down perhaps 1 ounce, 2 ounces at a time.
The metal seems to come out like a wave. I mean, all at one time, splashing around.
It does. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Because it's within the graphite crucible, and the graphite crucible is nice and smooth, and it's not like a normal little crucible where it's been held in the crucible, then it tips. The problem that you've got, because it's the graphite crucible, so here's your graphite crucible, that's the inside, and here's the lips, then the outside, the metal stays down here until this just passes horizontal, and as soon as you tip it just past horizontal, this shoots, because don't forget, it's got all this space to move, and it does shoot straight out. So you can't just gently tip it like you can do with the little 2-inch ceramic crucibles. This flows. And if you're doing some ingot molds, if you pour the, let me draw this looking down on top, okay? So here's your ingot mold and here's your ingot grooves here. If you get this and you put it in this direction to pour, it's going to go bleh, all over the place, all over these, okay? So that's no good. So what you want to do is have it in this direction, so when you pour, it goes bleh, and you go bleh, bleh, all the way along, all the way along the ingot mold grooves. So the metal is going in the direction of the grooves. So that would be a good tip. If, like when we do our vacuum casting, you've got to make sure that when you do tip it, if you tip it and your crucible is right on the edge here, it'll come absolutely flying out. If you bring it too close over here, like perhaps you would do it if you had a little crucible, 2-inch crucible, it's going to go shooting over the edge. So yes, it does come out in a wave. Take good care. If you're putting it into an ingot mold, let me know. If you're putting it into an ingot mold, put it in this direction. Or if you're using one of the upright ones that do sheet, when it gets poured out, pour it in the direction of the slot, not against it. So if you're looking down on top of those ingot molds and that's going downwards and this is upwards, you would put it in this direction, okay? So it gets poured along the slot, not against it, because it will miss the hole. Next question, please, Louise.
Okay, Kelly is saying, I was wondering how to create a hollow form teardrop earring without casting it.
Ooh, that's an interesting one. The only way that, there are a couple of ways that you can do this. One is one with straight sides like this, and that comes round like that. This way, what I would do is virtually make a ball. Make perhaps a half hemisphere first of all with your doming punches, and then just take it a little bit further round so it comes in like this. Then what you would do is make a cone out of a piece of metal, that sort of shape, and you bend that into a cone. Yeah. All these dimensions have all got to be worked out, because this length from here to here has to be the height of the cone. This distance from here to here has to be the circumference going around. Then you would solder that on top of your half a dome. So that would be one way. The other way that I've done it is I have drawn out and I've got some wax, and I have made that shape out of wax, okay? On the back side of it, so that's the side view, I've made it that shape, and then what I've done is hollowed out all this area here. Okay, so then you're left with a little hollowed out area like that, and that's in wax. And then I've Delft clay casted 2 halves, so I've Delft clay casted that twice and then soldered it together. This is the better way to make a light form, but it's got straight sides. If you make this out of wax, you can obviously make it to whatever size you want. Limitations are to your Delft clay rings. But you can make this then whatever you want to do. You can make this a little bit more of definitely a teardrop shape like that, whereas you couldn't do it that way. But this is the way I've done it, is this way here. If you can try and get the wall as thin as possible, put it up to the light so you can see through it. If it's quite dark colour wax or dark colour blue, if you're using blue wax, it's a little bit too thick. If it's thin, it's going to be a lighter colour. Try and get the even colour all the way through. But that would be the way I would do it. Then cast it twice in Delft clay, having the sprue hole down here where it's thicker, and then once you've got your 2 halves, then perhaps you can tidy it up, and then you can solder the 2 halves together. Those are the 2 ways that I would definitely recommend. How's that? Mm-hmm. So I'm a bit excited because I'm warm. I've been running up and down stairs, so I'm a little bit on the excited side. Yes, Louise, maybe have our next question.
Okay. Beat Demon is asking, it has been practicing pick soldering for making chain. I have not been able to consistently pick up the ball of solder. Could I get some pointers?
You don't necessarily have to pick it up with the pick. If you just had a pair of tweezers, you can just simply, wrong camera, you can just simply come along, and once the solder's balled up, get your tweezers to pick up the ball to put it up onto the joint. You can use the tweezers, it's going to be a lot easier because you can pick up the ball and put it on the joint. If there's a bit of flux on the joints, well then, yes, that little ball of solder will stay. You can stick feed. I don't like to do anything to do with stick feeding because you can't control the amount of solder that goes on it. Pick soldering, yeah, the pick is right next to it. You put the flame comes along. If you touch the pick on the solder before it's melted and then melt it, it usually melts onto the tip, so you can take that then onto the joint, heat up the joint, and the solder will come off the pick. I know the majority of picks the solder won't stick on, but if you put, here's your pallion of solder and here's your pick. If you stick the pick on the solder, like almost to hold it down, then get the flame here and melt this, it may melt around the point and it should stay on. Then you can transfer that. Also, if you put a little bit of flux onto the tip of the pick, the solder will stick onto that little bit of flux as well, and that will help keep it on the end of the pick. Then you can transfer that then over onto the joint, bit of flux onto the joint, heat up the joint, and then the solder will flow off the pick. But I think I know what the problem you're having is that you're melting the solder, then you're trying to pick up that melted ball of solder with your pick. But try and put the pick on the solder before you actually melt it. And it should not obviously stick and fasten onto the tip, but it should stay on there long enough for you to just to pick it up and put it onto the joint itself. Should have brought a glass of water.
Do you want some water?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Next question, please, Louise.
Okay. Michael is having trouble melting brass into small ingots with my EZ Orca torch. I used the largest nozzle. The surface turned silvery but didn't turn into liquid form. Heated for 10 to 15 minutes.
I don't have an awful lot of experience melting brass down or melting copper down, to be honest. It sounds like there's not enough heat coming out of the torch. If the surface goes nice and shimmery, and that's it, then obviously the inside of what should be molten metal is still solid. So I would say that the torch is not getting hot enough to penetrate into the mold itself. So you've got your load of scrap here, your torch is here. So where the torch is, all this around here is starting to melt, but the heat isn't getting to the inside. And it's important that the heat does get to the inside. And if it's not getting to the inside, it means that perhaps your torch placement on the actual molten metal is not right, because there is that little sweet spot just by there that is the hottest part. And you can practice putting the torch closer, bringing it away and seeing where that little bit of shimmery metal is. But it sounds like the metal is not getting hot enough. So perhaps invest in a bigger torch, or see if somebody's got a torch that uses oxygen and propane as well. And that then would give you more power, more heat, and ask them if you can use that and see if that melts your little bit of brass. And if so, obviously then it means then that your torch isn't getting hot enough. I need to invest in a bit more of a hotter torch. Maybe have a next question, please.
Yeah, Joe is asking, has the Durston belt sander draw been done yet?
No. Next question, please, Louise.
Okay.
No, not yet. It was due to be drawn end of last week, wasn't it? I haven't done it yet. It's been a weekend. I had to spend all day yesterday and Saturday evening looking after Louise.
I was all right Saturday evening.
Oh, she said, oh, were you really, Louise? Now you're saying you were all right, were you? Yeah.
Can I just put it up there? My arm still hurts.
Really? I haven't heard that one today. It will be drawn tomorrow. I'll have that. I think we had like over 500 entries into that. Few people have entered 2, 3, 4 times. They are disqualified.
Don't go like that again now.
What?
Don't terrify everybody, please.
It says in the terms and conditions, multiple entries will be disqualified. Next question, please, Louise. So Joe, don't worry, you'll be notified. And also, Louise has to put down the winners of the competition as well on social.
That, yeah.
So yes. Sorry, next question then, please. Oh, and don't forget, we also got to get in contact with and send the details to Brad. I can't remember the gentleman's name.
You were terrible.
Next question, please, Louise.
Oh, yeah, no, that's in hand. Yeah. That's fine. I've sorted that.
There we go. Cool.
Yeah, even with my bad arm. Okay, Romy is asking, why did the bangle pop apart on all that glitters? Did the solder give out?
So what happens is that it looked like when you solder a bangle, the bangle is nicely annealed and the joint comes together. It kisses. It just gently touches. It doesn't have to.
Here we go.
Just come together. So they're just touching. It's like anyway. So when you solder flows and it's absolutely gorgeous. So I think what happened was, what Naomi did was that she hammered it, and by hammering it, you're putting some stress and you're forcing it down the mandrel, and you're forcing it around. So then what happened was that when the torch was put onto it, because there was stress in the bangle, it opened up slightly. Perhaps what she should have done was saw through the joint, okay, and start afresh, or put a little bit of binding wire around the bangle just to hold it so it doesn't spring apart, just to hold it in place. And that would have held the bangle together. Then she could have just tidied up the joints. So there was 2 ways that you can do it, but that's the reason why the bangle came undone, because there was tension in the bangle from the hammering. And if you don't want it to come undone, anneal the back of the bangle first so there's no tension, but I would always cut through if you're not happy with the solder joint, there's a reason why. Solder hasn't flowed, the surfaces weren't clean. So I would always cut through the original solder joint, get rid of the old solder, and then put it back together and treat it as a fresh joint, nice and clean, and it should solder back perfectly then. But it's a good question, thank you for that. Good. Next question, please, Louise.
Okay. Marcia is asking, how would you set a triangular shaped faceted stone into a bezel setting?
Okay, so how would I set it, or how would I make a bezel?
How would you set a triangular shaped
Okay, so let's make the bezel. Okay, so you have a long strip of metal. Okay. So perhaps this piece of metal is at least 3 times the length. So this length and that length and that length equals done, 2, 3 and a bit more. Okay, so get the length of what you want. This length here, we'll call this A. Okay, so you measure from here to here, measure 1 millimeter or 2 millimeters long. So that would be A plus, say, 2 millimeters. Okay, and you put the end of the line there, you cut that bit off. So that is to go spare. Then you measure halfway between here and here, there. So then you score, or you file, or you just saw through. All right, you saw through a little groove like that. You bend the metal at that point, and perhaps you may have to do it slightly bigger, like that, to allow the metal then to come round into that sort of angle. Once you get this angle here now from your piece of metal, all right, so this is your angle here. So this angle here now has to be the same angle as this here, okay? So that angle is the same angle. You put your bit of metal here and here. Where it comes to the edge of the stone, you cut off there, you cut off there. So this is the angle you want. Then you get this little piece here, this little chap, and put it by here, and you solder that in place. A little bit extra here, a little bit extra there, solder, solder, then you come along and just cut off there, and you've got a gorgeous triangular bezel, exactly the right shape that you want. So you've got your bezel. How do you set it? Okay, so here's our triangular stone. Here then is our bezel on the outside. What you must do is always start on the corners, all right? And if you're burnishing, if you start here, okay, and you burnish outwards, your You know this, don't you?
I do know this, yeah. I know you can-
You're going, yes, he's right here. I know
exactly
I know this. You're effectively burnishing and pushing the metal. So if you push the metal here, okay, the metal's going to get that little bit longer. So a close-up of here's the stone and here's the metal, and if you do the same this way, you're going to be left with a gap that looks like this away from your faceted stone, okay? If you burnish like that and you burnish in this direction. So you don't want to do that. No, you don't want to do that. So what you want to do is start on the corner. Okay, try and just burnish over the edge a little bit. You may need to perhaps have a little bit of, if you've got like a hammer action handpiece, just to start over on the corners. So start on the corners, okay, then work towards the middle and then work towards the middle. And you do it the opposite way to what you think. Because then, when you work towards the middle, the metal is not going to be pushed away from the corners like it would do if you pushed and burnished in this direction. So always burnish from the corner into the middle, from the corner into the middle. And you should do that with all square stones, stones with corners. So if you've got like a pear shape, do exactly the same thing. You start on the tip and then you burnish around. You have a square stone, okay? You start on the corners and you get the corners looking gorgeous, and then you move towards the middles all the time. You do it that way, okay? That is the best way to do it. Then you can be sure the corners are going to be great. Otherwise, you're going to be left with gaps and the metal is going to be doing this. And here's the corner over here, and you've got big gaps. So there we go. That is how you make a triangular bezel, and that is how you set a triangular stone. Maybe have a next question, please. Oh, wait, sweets either.
You can't have sweets, can you?
No, I can't. No, I'm on a diet. Next question, please.
Yeah, so am I. Yes.
Go on.
We said about that the best, isn't it?
I think so.
Okay. Mary Ann is working up courage to melt silver to make an ingot.
Nice.
The pouring looks tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, as I found out. Did Jason show you the photo?
No.
Is there any reason I couldn't melt the silver right in the ingot?
So, if you follow the advice that I gave with the brass, okay, so when you have the molten metal and it's in your crucible, you've got to heat it up so the surface starts to come all nice and shiny. Then the surface then gets nice and shiny, and what is like a rough molten mess becomes a nice rounded molten bit of metal. If you keep swishing it around in your crucible or tap the crucible, you should see little bits just come into the surface, okay? And that's perhaps something that may be caught up within the silver. It may be some scale or some oxides coming up to the surface. A little bit of borax, some powdered borax over the top, swish it around until when you swish it around, the metal is nice and smooth. There should be no little rough bits. There should be no little lumps coming up to the surface, because that would mean then it's not completely molten. So once you swish it around your crucible and you tap it and it's looking absolutely gorgeous, and when the flame goes on it, the surface is rolling, what you want to do then is wait. Keep heating for about another 20 seconds, because what you've got to remember is if silver melts at a certain temperature, okay, then as soon as you take the flame off, so if you melt the silver to the melting point, but take the flame off, the temperature drops. And as soon as it drops, the silver will become hard. It'll start to solidify and you won't be able to pour it. So what you've got to do, okay, so say, for argument's sake, okay, say silver melts at 1000 Fahrenheit, yeah? Which is here. So at that point, it is just molten. Okay, you take the flame off, that will start to drop to 999, 998, and so forth. Yeah, it'll drop. As soon as it becomes down to here, it'll start to solidify. So what you've got to do is take the temperature up, and it's called a superheat. You want to increase the temperature, so it's not just molten, it's hotter than molten. And that's what I say is that if you keep the torch on the molten silver for about another 20 odd, 30 or so seconds, the silver gets hotter and hotter and hotter. So the temperature may get up to 1100 perhaps, okay? Does this make sense? Okay, so then when you remove your flame, or you keep the flame on the crucible to the ingot mold, and do what I said before, when you pour, here's your little crucible looking down on top, and here's your ingot mold, okay, pour it in the direction of the channel. Don't necessarily pour it across the channel, Louise, because I think this is what Jason told you to do.
Jason didn't tell me to do anything, I just
did it.
I just went ahead. with no instructions.
If you pour it across the channel like this, the metal has to go, oh, I've got to change direction.
It didn't make that noise. It didn't go, oh,
oh darn.
Well, that's what I made my mistake, obviously.
The silver goes, oh, I can't go, and I've got to do this. And it takes long time, seconds, milliseconds, fraction of a second to do that. But every time, every half a second, millisecond, the silver is cooling. If you pour it in the direction of the mold, the silver will go, oh. Yeah, it's like swimming into a brick wall. When you dive off into a pool, if you dive along the length of the pool, you go, woo. But if you dive against the brick wall, it's very dangerous. Remember that.
So was me pouring the ingot. That was very dangerous as well, so I won't do that again. I did make a noise, Paul, yeah.
So you need to increase the heat. So it's hotter, it's a superheat. So as soon as you take your flame off, or the silver leaves the crucible to be poured, it starts to cool down. It's got 100 degrees before it starts to melt. Also, the ingot mold, warm it up slightly as well. When we come and melt down, we have, say, like the crucible is here on a handle, yeah, and the torch then is coming in this direction here to melt it. We would then put the ingot mold right by there. So the excess heat is coming from the ingot mold, from the crucible onto the ingot mold. So you don't have to heat this up separately. It's being heated all the time from the flame coming across, and the flame then is going onto the ingot mold. Okay, so as long as the ingot mold is warm, it's quite hot, but not necessarily a red hot. When the silver comes off and hits the ingot mold, it won't have so much of a shock, and it'll stay slightly molten that little bit longer. But it's important to keep the silver hotter than what it should be at molten. So as soon as you remove the flame or the silver gets poured, it's got those 100 or so degrees or whatever it would be to cool down before it solidifies, and you'll find that it'll fill the mold. If it's an open one, if it's a closed one and you're making round or making sheet, exactly the same thing. Keep it hot, warm up the mold, and you should be able to have a nice, gorgeous ingot. Next question, please, Louise.
Okay, Susan is asking, do you singe your flannel buff flaps? It's not my question, it's Andrew. Do you singe your flannel buff flaps?
Yes. Do you want to know what I'm on about?
I don't know, do I?
So, who mentioned this?
Susan.
Susan. Okay, Susan. So yes, I do. Let me just let me use this one here. So this is a mop. When you buy, have I got one here? When you buy your mops new, have I got one there? I do. I've got a brand new mop. Anyway, when you buy your mops new, you put them on your bench-mounted polishing motor. Okay. They're going to be new, they're going to be fluffy. Make sure you wear eye protection and a mask. Start them off. You can get the edge, the tang of a file just to rub up against the edge of the mop. And what you're doing is trying to remove all the loose fibres. Then what happens is you get this sort of look. You get, this is obviously being used, but you get these little fibres, okay, coming off the mop like this. Now these can be quite dangerous because if one of these happens to catch in whatever you're polishing, it can rip it from your hands. So what you need to do is to singe them. I guess this is what you're on about. So the idea is you would get your mop just like this. You would then get I'll actually do this live, shall we? Let's widen this camera a bit. There we go. So what you do, you would get your mop, you would get the flame, and what you do, you want to set fire.
Oh no, I don't like this.
Okay, you want to set fire to all those little singy bits, okay? Like this.
Oh, this is
What you're doing, you're burning off all those little singed bits, okay? Like that. So then you don't have all the singed bits, but what you're going to find is that it may carry on smouldering, which is what we've got here. So try and put them out with your finger. okay, or just dab it like this. Okay, so now there's a couple more bits by there. Let's just get them going. So that's what you want. You want to singe all those little bits.
Isn't there a safer way of doing that?
No, this is the safest way of doing it.
Okay.
So make sure now that you get rid of all the singy bits. Make sure there's nothing smoking coming from it. Now you can put that back on your mop and you can now carry on turning it around on the mop. What you may find is that after a couple more goes, then when you start to polish, you still may get some little thread sticking up. So I would repeat that again.
I'm not sure that's very safe.
Just ask Mr. Goldsmith, Mr. Stephen Goldsmith, the polishing guru. That is how you do it. And he's polished for royalty.
Maybe do it outside.
You can do it above a bowl of water if you're just to be on the safe side.
I think that's probably the best.
Obviously, we do have a fire extinguisher where's the camera? By here?
Yeah,
but by here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a job for outside.
But what you've got to remember
with your goggles on.
Yeah, is obviously make sure there's no singy bits on it, because as soon as you put it onto the polishing motor and it starts to spin, because of the heat and the wafting of the air, you may find that those singy bits may start to catch fire. So you've got to make sure that they are all tapped out.
Oh my God!
Louise,
right, okay.
That is how you remove
I'll have nightmares tonight
your singy bits from your mops.
Yeah.
I guess
over
that's
the
what
sink
you
or
meant.
soldering station. Yeah, I agree. He's a big one.
Obviously you take better precaution than doing it on your bench. Absolutely, yes. But that is the way. That is the process that you do it. Maybe have a next question, please, Louise. I'm just going to put this back on my.
It stinks and all.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Over a damp towel. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Next question, please, Louise.
Okay. Right. Debbie is asking, how do you make a C-shape ring shank?
C-shape. Oh, please. C-shape ring shank.
It really has made me cough, actually.
Stop open the door. Sorry.
No, because
the smoke alarm will go off then outside.
A C-shape ring shank.
I'm not quite sure what you mean.
How do you make a C-shape ring shank?
Oh, a letter C. Yeah, C-shape.
A C-shape ring shank.
No matter how many times you say it. I don't know. Do you mean just a C shape? So letter C is like no, that's backward. That's a D. Do you know what? Sometimes I am dyslexic. I'm sure I'm dyslexic. C.
Well done.
Thank you. So that's. Do you know what? I've had more and more things. Is that a D or is that a B? I'm not quite sure.
Can I just interrupt you? Sorry.
Yes.
Romy just trims them off rather than singeing them, which seems like a bit of a safer option to me. Yeah.
Oh, we want to see some fire. We want some.
Oh, hang on. No, if you singe outside and there is a breeze, your mop is likely to burn more or catch fire.
Because there's more oxygen in the breeze.
Do you know what? Just knock that on the head and just trim them. Yeah. I don't know.
Just trim your threads.
I don't know. Bit of daisy. Okay.
C-shape. Do you mean the section of metal is C-shaped, or do you mean the shank was a hole and then you cut off from there to there, so you make a C shape? I'm not quite sure.
Can you give us a bit more detail?
Bit more
please,
detail.
And I'll
Yes,
come
please.
back to your question as soon as.
Yeah. Is it? So you've got like a D section, flat section, chord section. Do you mean a C section like that? Not quite sure what you mean. Give us a bit more information. Happy to help.
Going back to the singeing, don't do it outside. Definitely don't do it outside, because outside, that's
There's more,
that's worse.
there's more
So ignore
breeze,
that.
there's Thank you, Louise.
Don't take any advice from me. Right. Would you like another question?
Yes, please. Yes.
Laura Kay is asking, can you please recommend a source for info about making filigree?
Oh my goodness me. The best thing is to check out YouTube, I think, for filigree. There's a couple of guys on there who make filigree wire. They will then do they get like a tap and die set? They get a die set and they spin it down the wire to get the groove, then they flatten it and they coil it. But definitely look on YouTube. I don't think there's any good books that describes filigree at all, but YouTube, I'm quite sure there's a guy doing it and he's outside, he's elderly gentleman. It looks like he's doing it in his back garden. It looks like a nice back garden because it's like, I'm so sad, I know all these things, don't I? It's his, like a nice tiled terracotta back garden. He's got a little table in front of him that he's just put up for the video. But he's an absolutely brilliant guy on filigree. No idea what his name is, but just look out how to make filigree. And if it's the guy who's outside on a little table, nice terracotta, nice plants, looks like he's in Greece or Italy or somewhere nice and hot, he's the guy for you.
But you don't know who he is. Okay, that's really made us know. Thanks.
But there aren't that many films on YouTube that tells you how to make filigree. And if you go down, there's the guy. He's good. And he just makes it look so effortless. He just spins it round with his tweezers and that and puts it all together. Absolutely amazing chap. Maybe have another question, please.
Yeah. Sandy is asking, what is your favourite cabochon setting?
There aren't that many ways of setting a cab, is there really? I think what is something that is really nice to do is have it like a bezel setting, but remove some of the bezel to make it a little bit more attractive. And we've got the tools that does the castellated bezels. We still sell them, andrewberry.co.uk/shop. We do still sell them, but it is nice if you have, I'll leave those down there. If you can have a bezel and perhaps put some decoration, come along with a round file to put some decoration to make it almost into like a claw setting, or so with a castellated, which is obviously, and then you cut down like this, and then I can't really draw it properly actually. So yes, so basically it does that, doesn't it? And it's like that. So that's the castellated. And then the good thing about the castellated bezels is the fact that you've got it nice and thick, and you can use that because all you're doing is just pushing over these little bits of metal here instead of the whole metal. And you can, again, if you can have decoration, just do the sides, like that if you wanted to, or do the sides like that, or do the side like that, and then have a square one, and then do it like, and you can force over and hammer over or burnish over nice thick bezels if it isn't a solid piece of metal. If you've got some little bit of decoration, remove some of the bezel. I'll tell you what I quite like is that when you're doing a nice diamond, and again, you've got a nice diamond like this, and you make a bezel for the diamond, okay? So here's your diamond, but you look from the side, instead of having a complete circle that goes like that, you would actually just remove a section like that and remove a section like that, so you can have, there we go, that bit like that. So then you've got that sort of look. So what was going to be a bezel holding the stone in place is actually half a bezel like that. And that is really nice, and that would be sort of, and then you set the diamond in, so the diamond then is only really held in half a bezel like that there, which is really nice, and there's no other bezel in there. You do have the edge of the girdle then exposed, but providing you have a decent amount of metal on either side, it's still protected in the corners, or have it the other way around and so forth. But that's a really nice way to do it. Instead of having a solid bezel, let a bit of light underneath, aids cleaning as well. That would be my favourite. Next question.
That's not a cabochon though, is it? Okay.
The way I was explaining before is I was just explaining away. Put a cab instead of a faceted stone there. Not a problem. Next question, please, Louise.
I like it though. It's cool, isn't it? Okay. Maria is asking, how do you contact the people behind all the glitters, please? I'm on a jewellery maker's Facebook page, and they had a lot of criticism regarding, for example, the timelines given. I think they're called 2020 media, aren't they?
Yeah. Are you trying to get in contact with the contestants or the TV
people
company?
behind?
People behind. So yes, 2020.tv. Yeah, 2020 is the production company.
Because we've been in touch with the publicist, but I don't
publicist
think we can give
no
information out. Sorry.
No. Yeah, so we've been in contact with the publicists about the questions, and they are very. obviously they have to look after the production.
Yeah.
So there's questions.
I think I'd be worried if they weren't this
Oh my gosh.
careful. It's,
Yeah, there's questions that we asked, that we wanted to ask the contestants, that we were told can't do that because it's not the right question to ask.
It
And they
gives
want
too
to
much away, and we can't
exactly.
know things, obviously, that you guys don't know either. So it's
Yeah.
you've got to be really careful what you ask. yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, if you want to get in contact with the production company, it's 2020 TV. Yep.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah. I
Cool.
don't think I saw Debbie. Debbie, are you still there? Didn't see any more of your question. If I missed it, can you pop it back? I can't remember what the question was now.
Well, the cabochon. Sea shank?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Next question.
Kristen is saying, have you seen bezel set cabs that look like the metal is rounded where it meets the stone? Would the rounding be done prior to setting or after with the tool?
What I would be inclined to do, there's two ways that you can do this. You can either set the cabochon from the back, so then you can do all the lovely work from the front. You can get like a nice pumice wheel, so you've got the edge of the bezel is here. You can round off this edge here with a pumice wheel. Here's your wheel here. Yeah, here's your wheel, and you just round that off. I would actually do that. That would be a nice way of doing it. You've got to make sure that the edge of your bezel is the right height and it's the right thickness before you do anything to it. To have some dry runs, put a bit of dental floss in, put the cab in, see how the cab looks, make sure it's looking right, make sure it's the right height, trim the bezel down, then you can pumice wheel, file it, a nice rounded top to the bezel. Then you can burnish it over, or you can actually make it in reverse, so you don't have a bottom there. So the bezel would be that sort of shape, yep. And then you put the cab then in from this way. So the cab then would go in here. So it has I've exaggerated that. So the cab would set in there. And then there are several different ways then that you could keep the cabochon in place. But then you can make this area here as thick as you want, as decorative as you want. You don't have to burnish it. You can get some little tabs then that come underneath that would hold the cabochon in place. But that's the way I would do it. If you've got a really thick bezel, you can do it that way. And if you're doing it this way, make sure the ends are rounded before the stone goes in place, because as soon as that stone goes in place and you burnish this bit of metal over, that bit of metal is sort of this sort of shape, you're hard to get in there to make the underneath here rounded, because you can't get underneath. But by making sure it's rounded beforehand, like that, when you burnish it over onto the stone, it is rounded. And that would be the best way of doing it. Any news on the C-section?
No.
Okay.
Odds is asking, anyone in the chat, recommend any courses for beginners? I am so much to learn and I don't know where to start. Because you were going to put together
Yes.
a beginners section, weren't you, on at the bench?
Yes.
Did you?
I've done that.
Yeah.
I've done the page. I've asked Steve, our tech guy, to put it on the dashboard as the first thing that you see. I haven't checked today. I messaged him the end of last week. I've done the page. I need to do a few more graphics to it.
Yeah.
But we do how to start out, your bench, what your tools you need. Then we go into soldering, what soldering equipment you need and how to solder basically. And then there's piercing as well. There's some piercing.
And also, still in production.
Still in production.
Still in production.
Is Bench Essentials.
Yes, I'm just trying to find a link because you can sign up to be notified.
Benchessentials.com.
That's easy to remember.
Benchessentials.com.
Is that really it?
Yes.
No. That's taking me somewhere else.
Or is it Essential Bench?
Yeah.
Essential Belch.
Essential belch.
Essential Belch Skills. Essential
.com?
Benchskills.com, yeah. Is it?
I don't know.
Is it?
Yes.
Essential
Here we go. Let me just copy that.
benchskills.com.
I will pop this into the chat for you, Odds, and you can, and anybody else who wants to be notified when the courses are available, the beginner's course. That's it. And then you'll get but it's still in production.
Absolutely. I'm sorry there's a lag. Susan said there's a lag. Do apologise. Don't know why. Our connection says excellent connection, so I don't know.
Oh, it's there apparently. That's good.
It's there.
It's there.
Wow, there we go.
Good old Steve.
Good old Steve. Didn't even tell me that. Perhaps that's gone into spam.
Yeah, so that's good.
That's the basics of what you need.
So in terms of what you need to collect to get started, is that in there as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, the basic tools, basic toolkit.
Great. So you can sign up as a free view member, but to get access to all the films, everything, you can sign up yearly or you can sign up monthly. And a lot of people just sign up monthly or just for a month initially and just get hooked. And
then decide what you want to do. You can carry on monthly. Or just carry on then and sign up for a year. Absolutely. So essentialbenchskills.com.
I just popped in the chat. Yeah,
nice.
that's for the beginner from scratch course, which is on its way.
Absolutely. Yes.
But the beginner section on At the Bench is available now.
Yes. Gillian says you're
hands
looking smart, but my hands are black now, as you can see, because I've been singeing my mops. Right. Let's have a look then. Should we have a next question, please, Louise?
Yeah. We've done the bezel set cabs, didn't we? Yes. Sandra is saying, I'm not precise enough when drilling small holes, 0.7-ish mil.
Yeah.
I'm new to my Ford MSR.
Yeah.
Best pilot divot tool? How much pressure with the handpiece and drill, and how fast?
It is something that takes practice. It is hard. I saw a picture on one of the Facebook groups and someone was drilling some small holes and the holes were supposed to be obviously in a line across a band and they slightly wandered and wavered. So it is something that you need to practice. I would make sure that you get yourself like a center punch. And again, with our essential bench skills, the piercing one, I'll show you how to make a center punch. Quite easy, really. But what you want to do is make a center punch that has a tip that's like this, or you could use a graver. And the essential part is marking out. You have to have the right tools. Get yourself a really good pair of dividers. They've got to be really accurate. The tips have got to be nice and sharp because then you've got to lay out. Yeah, you've got to lay out your design across. So it all relies upon the layouts and make sure that the line that you're just putting down the center of the ring is going to be nice and even. Nice way you can do that is that if you get the ring, and I will try and demonstrate on this, let's try and zoom this camera in if I can possibly do. So what you can do is get the ring, then get a pair of dividers or just get a scribe and just work out roughly where the one comes to, and you can just spin the ring around like that, okay? Then flip the ring over and spin the ring round again, keeping these exactly where they are, and that will put 2 lines on the ring, and just get the center of those 2 lines, that's where it should be. Get back your dividers and do exactly the same thing, or work on your dividers and get the exact half. You would come along, you'd adjust your dividers to get half, like that. Turn the ring around, make sure now that those 2 lines come together in the center of the band. If they don't, make a slight adjustment, come along, put the line, turn it around, put the line, and once this one leg here gets nice and central with the ring, then you can mark out the center line all the way around the ring. It's just a practice, we've got to practice stoning it. Then once you've marked out the exact center of the ring, work out then where your stones are going to go. Again, I would then get like a graver. I'll take my gravers down now, I think. If I take my gravers down, here we go. So I would get a graver.
Kate's asking, how did you set the stone? How have you set the stone in that ring?
in the way that I described right at the beginning. What's my favourite way of setting? Like a flush set, but instead of burnishing, get to, I'm not quite sure how close we can actually get with this overhead camera. Let's have a look. How close can we get? Is that as close as we can get? Where's the camera? There it is there. There we go. You should be able to just see. But check out the live 12-hour. There we go. We did this in the live 12-hour, so you can check that out. But yeah, get your dividers. Once you get that first hole right, I would then get a graver. It's camera number 2. Get the graver and just put the little mark where it needs to go. Yep, that'll be your first mark. Then get your dividers then and mark off all the way around the position. Then you can either get your graver to put on the little mark and make a little divot, or come along with a center punch, put this in a ring clamp and just tap exactly where that needs to go. If your holes have to be 0.7 millimeter, perhaps try and start with a 0.5 millimeter drill, because if you make a slight error with a 0.5 millimeter and it isn't quite on line, you can always put the 0.7 or perhaps a 0.7 ball burr just to pull the hole back into position. So say there's your ring here and there's your line down here, and you're drilling your holes, and one happens to go over there like this, it's slightly out the way. Then you would get your little ball burr, and instead of putting the burr exactly where it should be, you would just put the burr over this way just to pull that hole back into position. So never start off with the right size hole, because you can always just pull the hole back into the correct position, perhaps using a 90-degree setting burr or a ball burr. And that would be your best way of getting the lines. And if you start with 0.7, that's a job that even I would shudder, because that's just far too small. May we have a next question then, please?
Okay, going back to Debbie's question regarding the C
shank?
Yes. She's saying, I've seen many rings that do not have a complete circle ring shank. They look like a C-shape ring shank. Do they make a circle and cut off a section and then solder to the back plate? Right,
okay, so it's basically, so you don't have a round ring, you'd actually perhaps cut that off and then you solder a plate on the top. That would be the easiest way of doing it, because you can ensure that your ring shank is going to be round. And that's the most important thing. First of all, then you can just cut off the top and solder the plate on. You don't even have to cut the whole ring off. You have the shank there and just file the top of the the shank down a little bit to solder your plate on, so you're not going all the way through the ring. But if you try and get a shank and you try and put it on the mandrel and you try and make it into this, oh, it's not quite round, and you've got to try and hammer it round here, and it's not quite right, and you bend these in and it's more pear-shaped, you're going to have problems. So make it round, solder it, tap it upon the mandrel, make it nice and round, make it nice and perfect, and cut that little section off. And all you're doing is just cutting that little bit off the top of there. And it's not a lot, you can always use that little bit of silver. But obviously if you're making the ring shank, okay, cut it where the solder seam is, or put the solder seam to the side there and cut it, so you're not leaving a solder seam down here. So make it round, put the solder seam perhaps to the side, cut through the solder seam, cut here, take this piece out, and you're left with that with no join in it, because that's where the join was that you've cut out. Then you can solder your piece on top, or whatever it is you're soldering on top, and that would be the best way of doing it. Maybe have another question.
Okay. Warren is asking, have you made liquid flux out of borax?
I've used borax making a Prips flux, but I haven't tried to liquefy it. No, obviously when it comes to the dish like this, it's in the bottom, and then it does evaporate. But I haven't tried. I don't know why I haven't tried. It's a good idea actually, having just a liquid. Have to try that. I've never tried it. Let me know if you try it. Next question, please, Louise.
Okay, Elizabeth is asking, when annealing a large or long piece, are you trying to get the entire piece rose red at the same time, or do you focus on one area at a time? No,
what you'll find is that there's quite a few jewellers nowadays who come along and hold in their tweezers, they hold the metal in their tweezers so it dangles down. What's his face? Brown does it on YouTube, and quite a few other jewelers do this. They hold that, and then they have the flame pointing in this direction, and they go down and up and down and up. But you don't have to get it all the same temperature, all the same colour. You just need to make sure that if it's a long piece like this, as long as your flame's by here, as long as you heat it and it turns red here and it turns red, and it turns the same redness all the way along, you've annealed the whole length. But it's better to, if you can try and coil that wire round and round and round, and then get a nice bushy flame so you can get it all nice and even. So the answer to your question is no, it doesn't have to be all the same temperature to anneal. As long as you go along and you anneal it all along the whole length, you should be fine. But next, two more questions. I think Louise, I can hear Sharon closing the shop up at the moment. So,
okay.
But two more questions. Is that okay? How are you feeling? Are you feeling okay?
Yeah, I'm all right.
Yeah.
Paul's partner was off their feet for 4 days in bed.
4 days, gosh.
I think I feel a relapse coming on.
And so do I. 3 weeks later. Not funny. Right, okay, next question.
Okay. Scrap over engineering. Does anyone know a quality Smith's torch alternative?
Not really. There is, I don't know what it is. There is a manufacturer out there that does a bit more of a beefy model, but I don't know, because Colin uses it. He has the torch tip sort of does that sort of thing, and then there's like two almost like two rods with the hose coming onto it that then has, so Colin uses it. I don't know which one it is. I have to ask my good friend Colin, and I shall get back to you on that one, by all means, yes. Next question, please. But that's a good one. That's a bit more of a beefy model. And I think they use that, they use that for melting down, because there's a bit more oomph when it comes to it.
Very good.
Next question, please, Louise.
Okay. Marin is asking, when soldering a ring band together, I often have trouble getting the solder to fill all the way to the top, and I end up with a gap. I put solder underneath the ring, I end up with a divot.
Okay, so if you end up with a divot, it sounds like the ends are not coming together all the way flush. The Mob 1080, you can buy an apron. Go to andrewberry.co.uk/shop. The aprons are for sale in there. So it sounds like that when you come to put the ring together, it sounds like this joint here is not even all the way along. It has to be even. If you have a divot on the top, perhaps the joint is more of a V shape, and the solder, you're trying to fill a gap. Solder does fill a gap, but it doesn't like it to. It prefers to flow within a nice tight space. So as long as you have this gap flush, okay, so the two faces come together, okay, so if you have this, that's the pen, not me. If you have a gap, the solder will flow between the gap in theory, but what you'll be ending up with is a little, what did the lady call it? Person call it? A divot, a little groove on the top. If the metal comes together flush, there is no way you're going to be left with a little divot or little recess on it. So they have to be really, really tight. Last question then, please, Louise. Last question, or is there anything else we need to talk about? No. Yes, Bobby White is the guy as I was talking about, yes.
Going back to the Smith's torch, already have a big, more standard metalworking oxypropane torch, was looking for a very small one. Elizabeth has recommended the Hokey Cokey.
Okay, the Hokey torch, have to have a look into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you've got a big one and want a small one, get a Smith's little torch. If you've got a small one and want a big one, get your Hoke.
It's Hoke, is it?
I think it's Hoke, yeah. I think it's Hoke, I'm not quite sure. Okay. Hoke. I prefer Hokey. I prefer Hokey myself.
Yeah, it's more fun. Okay. Warren is asking, have you made liquid borax flux for soldering?
Yes, by making, I've made Prips. There was a recipe for Prips. I think Susan put a recipe for Prips flux, at the beginning of this chat. I think I remember seeing it. You can look up on the internet and there's a couple of recipes for making prips. I've made prips. It's okay. I tried to put it in like a little pipette, but it just solidifies in the pipette, and I really haven't had much luck with that. Try to put it in a spray bottle, it just bungs up the spray head and it just is rubbish. But the flux itself is good. It's just the way I use it. That's a bit rubbish. Let's have another question, Louise. Come on.
Okay. Maria is asking, what's the best and easiest way to make triangular shaped wire?
Okay, you can make triangular shaped wire by passing. What have people done? They've made square wire and they've made triangular shaped wire by putting square wire through. I've never done it. If you put rectangular section through, so this is y, and this is y times 2, and y times 2, and that's y. So that's 1 millimeter, that's 2 millimeter. Put them back to back, so that's 1 millimeter, that's 1 millimeter. So you've got 2 millimeter square. Put that through the rolling mill, and I've no idea how that ends up. I don't think it'll work, to be honest. Draw plates. Draw plates are the best and easiest way. The problem is you're trying to get a square shape through a triangular plate, and it really is difficult because the square goes in there and the square gets removed, gets smaller and gets smaller. I've got a triangular draw plate, but it's never completely worked the way I want it. It's just experiment, really. I really don't know the best way. I know you can put things through the rolling mill, but I don't think rectangular section is going to work, so ignore that. But a draw plate is going to be the best method, but it is the hardest method of doing it.
Okay.
You stumped me on that, and I think making triangular wire. I'm not quite sure we can buy triangular wire. I'm sure there's somebody who knows how to make triangular wire. Okay, Louise, what do you think? Should we call it a day? What do you think? Or should we have one more?
Yeah. Oh, Maria, it was just a seam rings in a nice triangular shape. That's what I was trying to do when I made a mess of the ingot mould.
Is it?
Yeah, but what we did was we obviously put it through the rolling mill.
Yeah.
And then sawed it. This was Jason's idea.
Oh, God.
And then, yeah, don't do it that way. I was still not finished. Started it in like November.
But then we've had lockdown since anyway. Yeah, draw a triangle and roll it smaller. Triangles are really awkward. You could try and get a triangular extension rollers. You could ask them to make a triangle extension roller for you. That would be quite interesting. But I don't know of a definite way apart from just draw plates. And that's how the other big manufacturers would actually make them up. One last question, and Sharon's disappeared now, so that's time to go. 10 past. Let's have one question. One last question, Louise. Choose any question.
Okay.
You know, start with a D shape and put it through a draw plate. Yeah, that would be the best way of doing it. Absolutely. Is there a best? What can you do with broken saw blades? Not much. You can't make much with broken saw blades. Put them in your Lemel. Put them in your sweeps bag. There's always little bits of precious metals on it. Go on then. Next question. Last question.
EK is saying, I'd like to make a square collet for a 5x5mm stone. What diameter wire should I use for the claws? Does fully annealed wire work? Yeah, this is the thing. People will buy half annealed or hard wire, and then they'll solder it. And once you've soldered it, you've taken that hardness away and it's back in its annealed state. 5mm, you can do 1.2 millimeter wire, 1 millimeter wire. What's that in American? Where's my glasses? There's my glasses there. What's that in American? What was 1 mil? 8. I must remind me to print this out because I'm missing the first digit. I don't know whether it's 20 or whether it's 10. Is that 20, no, 20, 18. 18 gauge. 18 gauge is what is 1 millimeter, so that's what I would definitely use for something like a 5x5. And you can either have it round section or D section. If you have it D section, there's going to be more metal in contact onto the stone, and it's less likely then to be picked up and get caught if you catch it on a thread. So 1 millimeter wire, 1.2 millimeter wire would be
fine. Let's have a quick look at what we got by here. That's nice, B Demon. Thank you for that. Nice for you to say so.
Oh,
Learned
that's
many new
lovely.
techniques. 18 gauge. There we go. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Elizabeth, for that. Okay, so Johnny Harding. I went to school with a John Harling. Similar, not quite. He's inherited his silver ring that he melted down and made into a new ring. Yes, you can melt the silver back down and make it up into another ring if you wanted to. Not a problem. It's a metal block for hammering wire into triangles. Yeah, you can get like the dies, can't you? The dies from like India that have the impressions along them. You can get triangle for that. You can hammer it in. Absolutely. Make the rollers. Yeah, great pound with jeweler grandpa. Watch make all the tools I have 70 to 140 years old.
Wow.
A lot of the tools that we use are really old. Not necessarily in age, but in
Things aren't that dissimilar, are they? The
Yeah,
basic.
yeah. It's basically the same as what it was years and years ago. Okay, so I think that's about it then, Louise.
I think so,
I
yeah.
think we shall go and rest up that arm of yours
Think
now
so.
because you've been tapping onto that keyboard. It must be really hurting you by now. Have to have a sit on the sofa.
I think so.
I'll make you some tea.
That's nice because I'm so hungry I can barely see now because of the diet.
Right, everyone, thank you very much for coming on today. Don't forget, if you're in the UK, All That Glitters, 8 p.m, BBC Two tomorrow night, Tuesday night. You can catch up on iPlayer. If you're not in the UK, you can go through a VPN and put your location as London and you can watch it on iPlayer.
It's a bit naughty though, isn't it?
Nothing wrong with it.
Really?
It just protects you from people sabotaging and getting into your computer. Absolutely. Hit that like button. Thank you so much. Yes,
thank you.
please do.
Thank
Give
you,
us a
Romy.
like. Give us a thumbs up if you like it. We're still here. Favourite burnisher tip. Don't use an agate one on silver. It's okay on things like precious metal clay and metal clay, but I would always use a steel tip, nice and shiny, nicely polished. Rest it with the G&T? Yeah, absolutely. Louise can have whatever she wants.
Oh,
I'm cutting down a bit.
that's nice.
Yes, you help yourself, Louise. I don't mind at all.
Yeah.
You know that. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. I will, Andrew. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah. So, everyone, thank you very much for coming on today. Rest up, Louise. I'm sure
Thank you.
Louise will.
I will.
So, we will see you all next Monday. Thank you so much for these sessions. Thank you to you too.
Unless anything really exciting happens tomorrow night, in which case we might just have to pop back.
And have another chat on Wednesday night all about All That Glitters.
Yeah, we'll let you guys know if we do.
Yes, absolutely. You'll hear about it first. Yes. So don't forget, if you want to get your questions in for us to ask the contestants of All That Glitter, we are having a few of them on our question and answer. We're having them, we can interview them. They'll be on the screen behind us. So if there's any questions you want us to ask them, don't put in who wins, because no one's going to tell you who wins. But put some questions in the At The Bench Facebook group. Louise has put a post in there asking you what questions would you like us to ask. Put them in there. We'll certainly consider it.
There's also Natalia's page as well, which is like a discussion page for everything to do with All The Glitters, which is brilliant. It was really good
Fan
last
page?
week, wasn't it? Yeah, the fan page.
I think.
And Kate and I think is it Kate and Jill? Kate and Julie have done the Makers Challenge page. I'll see if I can find that now quickly. And then are you on it, Andrew?
I think I've joined.
You've joined.
Yes, I have joined. Yes. So the idea is that there's a few of our At The Bench members who have set up sort of fan pages on Facebook. The All That Glitters fan page. Natalia's done that, and that's where a lot of discussion goes on for All That Glitters there. I think Kate Xiao has come along and put an All That Glitters page as well.
It's a Makers Challenge.
To do with actually, making the projects, the challenges that the contestants are given in the show. So what you want to do is to make up your 3 bangles in 3 hours. So at the end of 3 hours, just take a photograph of how far you've got to see how far people are getting within 3 hours. And if you're making up the little commission for Ben's mum, Andy, who's doing the fostering, just make up the pendant, and after the time limit, take a photograph and put it upon the Facebook page for us to have a look. I would love to do the challenges, but I really just don't have time to do my own stuff, let alone have a go. But I would love to have a go. Yes, Paul, exactly right. Also, there's a little bit of discussion on the At the Bench forum as well. If you want to put down some questions in there as well, happily ask the publicist to consider those questions for us to ask.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great. These Facebook groups we don't run, they're run by lovely members of At the Bench.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we can't take credit for these.
How far would you get in 3 hours for 3 bangles? Now this is, okay, so I'm going to talk for another 5 minutes now. I think experience comes into this, because you know how long things will take to make. So if you think, I'm going to make up some gorgeous, highly finished bangles, but it's going to take me about half an hour to polish each bangle, well then you're going to have to think, well, okay, is my technique, is my style, is my preparation of making the bangle going to be quick enough, good enough for me to spend half an hour polishing? And if you think, well, do you know what, I can't spend half an hour polishing, but I can spend 15 minutes putting a brushed finish on it, or get one of the matting mops to quickly go over the surface to get a fantastic texture, like these sort of mops here. Yeah, these will produce an absolutely brilliant finish at a fraction of the time. So I think experience really comes into its own, knowing how long things are going to take you. And if you've got 3 hours, you would then produce a design and a finish that you could complete in 3 hours. So if you're fantastic at doing your anti-clastics or your synclastics, and you feel you can get the bangles done within 3 hours, great. But I think when what's the lady's name? Tanya? I can't remember. Hang on. I got all my information down here. Tam.
No.
Tamara, I was right,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, sorry,
so
yeah.
when Tam came along and said, I'm going to do the convex and concave bangles, I thought, ooh, those are going to take quite a bit of time to make.
But then maybe that's something that, because everybody has days where things just don't go right.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So maybe...
Perhaps she thought she could get them done in time, yeah?
Well, perhaps...
Yeah.
The other 9 times out of 10 when she's done them, they've gone perfectly into plan, and just that one time.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Because of the pressure, that's the thing, isn't it? It's just...
I wouldn't like to be under that pressure.
No.
It's bad enough when like Jason's looking over my shoulder, just making fun of me. But let alone having cameras and having the judges walking around and oh my god. Yeah, so I think the pressure does get to them. But I'm sure definitely, as the series goes on, they'll become a little bit more relaxed. But I think experience will tell.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Can you hold up the mop again? The one that looks a bit like the instrument torture, I think.
Oh, the instrument. There's different ones. You can get these. The pins are slightly thicker on some of them, and they would give you a bit more of a coarse texture. So obviously, as this comes around, the pins would hit, and they produce little dents, like a frosted finish. Finer pins produce a finer texture. Coarser pins produce a coarse texture, and you can run these over a surface. Remember, you can't run them at a high speed, about 4,000 revs. Eye protection, got to keep everything going in the same direction. So don't move the mop or the brush side to side. You're going to get a different look. You need to keep it all in the same direction across the whole bangle or across the whole surface to get a nice even look. But they're really good. They're really good to use if you want a nice frosted finish.
Jason makes fun of you. Luckily, you never make fun of him.
As if I would make fun of Jason, eh?
Yeah, as if. Poor old Jason.
Thank you very much for coming on today. Louise, would you like to say anything?
No, just don't miss all the glitters tomorrow.
8 p.m, BBC Two.
Yeah.
Catch it up on iPlayer. Well versed now. So everyone, thank you for joining us. We will see you all next Monday, unless something good happens. Obviously something good is going to happen.
Something good's going to happen, yeah.
But if we need to come on, perhaps we'll be on Wednesday evening, a little bit late, perhaps 6 o'clock if we need to. But if not, we will catch you next Monday, 4 p.m. here on our question and answer on YouTube. Louise, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
We will see you next week. Take care, everybody. Have a lovely week, and we will see you very shortly. Bye.